Welcome to our presentation titled, Can a Digital Service Be Too Easy to Use? Looking at accessibility from a new perspective. I am a screen reader. My job is to translate visual information on a computer screen into an audible format. I enable blind and visually impaired people, such as Kimmo and Tero, to access computers and other digital devices. As a matter of fact, I am currently reading a computer monitor that has been switched off. I will next demonstrate what reading an actual web page sounds like. Let's go to the Oslo web page and find Kimmo and Tero's presentation page. Banner landmark Oslo visited link current page. Green M globe graphic to link. Navigation landmark list with 6 items tickets link. Program visited link. Oslo 2021, 1300 app to be announced soon, 1330-1350. Link. Can a digital service be too easy to use?
Hi Kimmo, hi Tero, welcome.
Hello.
We're so happy
Thank
you're
you.
here. Tell me, what did we just hear?
Yeah, that might have sounded a bit strange, but that was actually some typical information spoken out by a screen reader. And that is something that visually impaired people, for example, like myself, use when accessing internet, web pages, using mobile phone or some other digital devices. And this is something that people like me are used to hearing all day long, every day.
All day long, every day. But how does a screen reader work?
Well, it actually doesn't read the screen in spite of its name. It actually, on the web page, reads the HTML code that is under the hood, so to speak. So that's why it's very important that this HTML code that is being developed is done according to web specification and accessibility requirements. And that is what enables screen readers to talk about or tell the user what is actually there on the screen for somebody who cannot see what's there on the screen.
Thanks for telling me more about it. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself? Who are you? How did you get into this important work?
Okay, thank you. So my name is Tero Pesonen, and I'm Kimmo's colleague here at Site Improve. And my background is in academia. So I have been researching software testing, software engineering. I then started to develop a very severe visual impairment, and that put me out of work life for some time. And then returning to work life, I looked what would be the avenue where I could best help not just society, but also develop myself professionally. And I felt that accessibility was a very natural avenue to go. And now have been very happy with that choice, because accessibility today is more important than ever before. And now I'm able to impact that change in society and also in business.
My background is a bit similar. I studied languages, and I used to work as a translator for a number of years. And also I did some web development 20 years ago, in other words, in the Stone Age. But when my eye condition started to get worse, I needed some other employment, and that's when accessibility came as sort of a natural solution for that. And I've been now working full-time in this field for 8 years.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about your team. How is it made up? What kind of roles do you have?
We are with Tero. We are mainly working today in consultation. So we work with organizations who are currently developing new services. We want to make sure that they are developed and designed from the ground up to be accessible. But we have also 2 other members who are mainly doing accessibility testing or auditing. So they go through published, released, launched web services and mobile applications, and they make sure that they are comply with accessibility requirements.
Yeah. And we think when we make web pages and we make services that in this day and age, like in 2021, most organizations know that accessibility is important and also good for business. But is that really true? Is that your experience?
Well, yes, and I think there's a sort of a difference between different kind of organizations. For public sector, it has been already the case for a long time because of these legal requirements that have been placed in a number of countries for some time that they need to be accessible. But I think private sector is starting to learn that accessibility can be a valuable way of developing more usable products. So what do you think, Tero?
Yes, that's definitely true. We see that the private sector businesses are approaching accessibility from a bit different point of view. When we talk about usability, we often talk about things that we also deal every day with when we create accessible websites, and we know that usability translates directly to efficiency. If you're a business and your customers can operate efficiently on your website, they find it easy to use, they find the products or the services that they need efficiently, then that's direct business case there for you. And we see that usability, accessibility, they are sort of merging, and increasingly the private sector is interested in using accessibility as a kind of a toolbox, how to create more efficient websites. So they approach more from that point of view compared to the public sector, which has more of this legislation point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where actually our title of our talk today comes from, because I believe that no organization will receive complaints about their service being too easy to use, and accessibility helps to maximize the usability for any kind of service.
I can still add a quick comment on that. We actually have even a very tangible experience of working with a project where a website has been built from ground up to be accessible first, and all other decisions have been subjected to that objective. And that particular service then received a user interface design award, sort of not despite it being accessible, but because it was accessible, because then it was actually easier for everyone to use than the previous version, while still looking very modern and nice and having no compromises visually.
Did you have a question, Ida? You look kind of questioning.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you find that the rules and regulations are enough to make a web page accessible, or is it other concerns we should take, or should you? I mean,
the way I see it, that's these sort of legal requirements. They ensure technical accessibility. They mean that people who rely on, for example, screen readers or some other kind of assistive technology, they are able to use in the first place, that it technically works for them. I think that's on the starting point, and there's a big area that isn't covered by this legislation or these requirements, and it is the cognitive accessibility, the understandability and usability of the page, and this is actually the most common accessibility problem that there is.
Yeah, and that's something that, especially here in the Nordic region, is currently being accentuated because we have an aging population, and at the same time, businesses, of course, want those people to also use their digital services. The same applies to public sector as well, and there the cognitive issues are what actually impact most of this user group. So when you take accessibility into account when you design a web service, you are actually making it easier to use, and you're also sort of tapping into this user potential who we maybe do not traditionally think about when we think of accessibility. We think about someone with a visual impairment or some other impairment, but actually this very large group of aging people are something that we consistently find are who benefit from accessibility quite a bit.
And another area that's very important and often overlooked is the actual content, for example, the text on the web page. Many people find that, for example, content by authorities, municipalities or the government, it's often very hard to understand, and this is actually a very big problem for a number of users.
The reason for this is that we still tend to write to web in the same way that we write for print, but people consume text online totally differently. They sort of browse, they scan, they need to find very efficiently certain keywords, the correct links, which form the service's user interface actually. So when we train web developers and content creators, we also talk about how you should write to the web and sort of rethink the way that you deal with text, because the people who read it also deal with it very differently in this web context.
Mm-hmm. So when we design services or websites and make stuff for people, maybe it's not enough to just follow the rules, but bring the users of that service or that web page with us in the design process. Do you have any ideas on how we can do that? What's a good way for businesses and for designers to bring people along in the design process?
Yeah, well, in the actual design development process, we find that sort of bringing people who have specialty needs, if they are laymen, they are standard users, they don't have that much input to give to the actual sort of technical aspect of the service. Where we do see that they do have a valuable input is if you are able to use them for user testing. So you bring in people who have, let's say, visual impairment, maybe they have cognitive issues and other forms of impairment that they need some kind of, let's say, accessible technology. And you user test with them, you can get the kind of insights that normal users do not give you, because these special users have very low tolerance to issues on the website that normal users can still sort of deal with. They are impacted by those issues, but they can deal with them and they do not directly report back to you about them. But these people are very sensitive to them. However, there's always the problem that you cannot interpret directly what they tell you. So you need someone who has experience dealing with accessibility issues and different disabilities who can interpret these results for you so that the individual person's individual situation doesn't too much dictate what conclusions you draw from their feedback.
One concrete example is, for example, people who have low vision and colors, because the case is very different for each individual and their sort of situation in their eyesight is different. So somebody might say that these colors do not work for somebody who has low vision because they don't work for that person, but another person would say that these are completely fine. So you cannot rely on sort of an individual opinion of some regular user. That's why it's always good to have an accessibility specialist who can interpret those results, as Tero just said.
Yeah. What are the most common accessibility problems that you find?
If you are interested in sort of numbers and statistics about accessibility issues and problems, I recommend you take a look at this organization called WebAIM. They conduct a big study every 6 months about accessibility issues on the web. They look at 1 million popular web pages and look what kind of accessibility problems there are. And statistically, the greatest number of issues are, for example, in the contrast between text and its background. And this is especially important for people who have low vision, that the contrast is sufficient, but very often it's not the case, even still today. And another one is that there are missing text alternatives for images. And this comes back to the screen reader usage. If you think about a blind person using the web page and there's some image, of course the blind person cannot see it, so there needs to be a text alternative that describes the image or the purpose of the image for that person, so that the screen reader can speak aloud what's there in this picture, in this image. And these are the statistically 2 most common problems. But based on our own experience doing testing, we have conducted, I think, about a few hundred accessibility testing for different kinds of services. We find that one of the most common problems is keyboard accessibility. So even today, many functionalities are designed only to be used with a mouse. But in fact, many people use, for one reason or another, they use their computers with keyboard. And you always need to make sure that every functionality is operable also with a keyboard without a mouse.
And that also applies to mobile devices, because you can now use tablets with these kind of keyboard interfaces. And of course, many of assistive technology also rely on a keyboard interface.
If you personally were to give the best advice you have to our guests today to create better services and to create better websites, what would that advice be?
Best single advice. I don't know. I think the advice is that if you have an accessibility objective, the correct way to do is that you take it into account immediately when you start to plan the project. Even as you are defining the service, why does it exist? Who are its users? So you start when you are planning the use cases, when you are then planning the user interface, you are already taking accessibility into account. It's not something that you should then just fix later on or add as an sort of later future to the service. It's something that is built from the ground up. And when you do that, it actually doesn't cost any more. It's not really all that much more difficult to use, and you are not facing any limitations in terms of how your user interface looks or anything. But the requirement is that you take it into account when you start designing the service, not just add it later on.
Yeah, I agree, and I might add that also keep in mind that there are lots of different kind of people using your service in multiple different ways and different sort of technology and different kind of devices, and keep that in mind that not everybody has perfect eyesight and uses the mouse, but there are different types of users out there in the wild, in real life.
Some users may even be using a smart speaker, and the smart speaker is a blind user.
Thank you so much for being with us today. And
Thank
have
you.
a lovely
Thank
day
you,
in
and have a
Finland.
great day. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tack till Kimmo och Tero.